Bear down, fam. Josh Sweat is one trade away from Chicago. And in a minute, I'll tell you why the most trusted source in the NFL just said this trade isn't happening, even though Ryan Poles has another plan. And while Ryan Poles is warming up the phone to buy on the defensive line, the other side of the roster already started selling. Cole Kmet just showed up on a 2027 cut candidate list. And no, it's not because he dropped off. It's a pattern I've watched this front office repeat 3 times now, and I'm naming names. And to close it out, the one that's genuinely got me smiling. Kyle Monangai, a 7th-round pick, has a clear runway to the starting job thanks to a contract expiring next year. And that decision could bankroll exactly what this team needs on the defensive edge. 3 storylines, 1 conclusion about where Ryan Poles' money is headed this summer. Windy City, let's get into it. All right, first the clarification I have to make because otherwise the comments are going to be chaos. We are talking about Josh Sweat of the Arizona Cardinals, not Montez Sweat, who is already ours and remains a starter here in Chicago. I know the last name causes confusion. I know there are articles out there with the link mislabeled, but stay with me because the player we are talking about is the other Sweat, the one playing in the desert. And trust me, this story is worth it. Let's go back to the origin, because to understand why this is juicy, you have to go back a bit. Josh Sweat built his name in Philadelphia. He started on the Eagles' defensive line, won the Super Bowl with them following the 2024 season, and in that very Super Bowl, he had 2.5 sacks on Patrick Mahomes. This is not a filler player. This is a quarterback hunter with a ring. In 2025 free agency, Arizona signed him to a 4-year, $76.4 million contract, with $38 million guaranteed. The main reason Sweat chose Arizona was Jonathan Gannon, the Cardinals' head coach at the time, who had been his defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. That personal connection is what closed the deal. And in his first season with the Cardinals, Sweat answered with the best year of his career. 12 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles. He was named to the Pro Bowl, and then everything broke. Gannon left Arizona, and he is now the defensive coordinator in Green Bay, a detail that is going to matter to you in a moment. Mike LaFleur came in as the Cardinals' head coach, and Sweat, the player who had specifically signed to play under Gannon, was left on a team that no longer had the main reason he came there in the first place. The signal was clear almost immediately. Sweat did not show up for any of Arizona's voluntary offseason work, not one session. And this is not the first time he has done this. He skipped the year before too, but this time the context is different because the coach who brought him in is gone. Kyle Odegaard, a reporter who covers the Cardinals, wrote that he had been hearing for a while that Sweat is not particularly happy in Arizona. That, in NFL language, is the polite way of saying a player wants out. Jordan Schultz reported that Arizona is fielding trade calls on Sweat. And that is when the speculation party started. Fansided built out hypothetical packages for several teams, and the one for Chicago, according to Austin Bundy, is direct. The Bears get Sweat, plus a 2028 6th-round pick, and the Cardinals get a 2027 3rd-round pick. Mike Moratis of Sports Illustrated wrote that this trade would literally be a no-brainer for Ryan Poles. And here's where I have to be the responsible fan, and not just the emotional fan, because there is a piece of information that changes the whole picture. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network reported that the Cardinals have no intention of moving Sweat. None. And look, I could be wrong, but when Rappaport says something like that, you generally have to take it seriously. That is not some random voice on social media. But we also know, as they say in this league, where there is smoke, there is fire, and there is plenty of smoke here. A player skipping voluntary practices for a 2nd consecutive year is not noise, it is a signal. Now, why do the numbers matter here? Because this trade is not free for anyone. Sweat carries a cap hit of $16.385 million in 2026, climbing to $23.6 million in 2027 and 2028. If Arizona trades him after June 1st, they save $10.9 million, but they trigger a dead cap hit of $31.8 million. That is a massive number to swallow without getting a decent return. That is why Arizona, even if they want him gone emotionally, has to be careful about the price. They are not going to give away a Pro Bowler just because he is unhappy. And here is the rival comparison I want you to listen to closely, because this is what makes this story much more interesting than a simple Bears want a pass rusher narrative. Green Bay is also in this conversation. Why? For the same reason as Chicago, they need to reinforce their pass rush. And now they have a direct connection to Sweat through Gannon, who is their new defensive coordinator. An article from Dairyland Express directly states that if the Packers want Sweat, it is going to cost them because they will likely have to compete with other teams, probably including us, for his services. And here is the structural problem nobody is talking about enough. If Green Bay enters this bidding war with the advantage of having Sweat's former coordinator already on staff, why would Sweat choose to come to Chicago instead of reuniting with the man who already knows his game inside and out? That is the uncomfortable question. Poles can offer the pick, but he cannot offer the personal relationship that Gannon already has with this player. And in the NFL, when an unhappy veteran gets to pick his destination, the relationship with the coordinator carries a lot of weight. That said, let's get to what really matters here in Chicago, the need. The Bears finished last year with the second worst pass rush win rate in the entire league and tied for the seventh fewest sacks. That, for a team that wants to genuinely compete for the Super Bowl, is a red flag flashing on the dashboard. Montez Sweat remains solid, 10 sacks last season, but on the other side of the line, the uncertainty is real. Austin Booker had 4.5 sacks in 10 games, promising, but a small sample size. Dayo Odeyingbo is coming off a torn Achilles. Shamar Turner combined for just 1 sack between the two of them last season. That is the full picture, and it is not pretty. Josh Sweat solves that problem in a way no other name on the market solves it. 8 or more sacks in 3 of his last 4 years, 12 in his most recent season, real playoff and Super Bowl experience. This is not a development bet like Booker or Turner. This is a proven producer entering his physical prime at 29 years old. My personal take, and I want to be honest with you, I think this trade has a lower probability of happening than the conversation on social media suggests right now, precisely because of what Rappaport said. But if 2 conditions are met, the story changes completely. First condition, if Arizona enters the regular season and starts poorly, say 2-4 or worse, the urgency to get an unhappy player out of the locker room is going to outweigh the dead cap hit. Second condition, if Green Bay makes an aggressive offer first and forces Arizona to move quickly to avoid losing value, then Chicago needs to be ready to compete with a stronger pick, not the third-round package being speculated right now. This has burned me before, I will admit it. A few months ago, I saw a similar story where everyone talked about an imminent trade that never happened because the selling team decided to hold firm. So I am not going to promise you that Sweat will be a Bear come September. But if POLES gets a real opportunity at the October trade deadline and the conditions line up, this is exactly the kind of move that turns a 9 or 10 win ceiling into a 12 or 13 win ceiling. The question is not whether the Bears need Sweat. The question is whether they will be willing to pay whatever it takes when the window truly opens. Okay, bro, now let's get into something that connects directly to what you just heard. Because if Sweat is about who POLES wants to buy, this is about who POLES has already started walking toward the door. Sports Illustrated published a list this week of 7 high-profile Bears who could be cut during the 2027 offseason to open up cap space. On that list, Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, Joe Thuney, Dayo Odeyingbo, Grady Jarrett, TJ Edwards, and Cole Kmet. And look, most of those names have a logical explanation tied to age or injury decline. But Kmet is the one I want to break down with you, because his case is not just about him. It is about a front office pattern I have already seen repeat itself. And this time, I'm going to name it directly. Let's start with Kmet's numbers. A cap hit of $15.4 million in 2027, dead money of $5.4 million, savings of $10 million if he is released. Kmet reworked his contract for 2026, which lowered his cap hit this year, but that came at a cost. It raised his 2027 cap hit. This is a classic front office move. You kick the problem 1 year down the road, but the problem is still sitting there waiting. And the real reason behind this conversation is not that Kmet suddenly became bad. He remains, when healthy and used in the right scheme, one of the better blocking tight ends in the league. The reason is the investment the Bears made above him. Colston Loveland, the 10th overall pick in the 2025 draft, is coming off what turned out to be the best rookie tight end receiving season in franchise history. 58 catches, 47 of those coming over his final 10 regular season games. Project that pace over a full season, and you are talking about 80 catches and just over 1,000 receiving yards. And in the playoffs, he kept that torrid pace going, 12 catches for 193 yards across 2 games. Loveland was named to CBS Sports' top 25 players, under 25 list, alongside Caleb Williams. And as if Loveland was not enough competition, the Bears also drafted Sam Roush out of Stanford in 2026. 2 tight ends selected in back-to-back years with day 1 and day 2 picks. That is not a coincidence. That is a statement of intent from Ryan Poles about where that position is headed. Now, here's the pattern I want you to see with me, because this has burned me as an analyst before, and I need to name it directly this time. Look at that list again. Dayo Odeyingbo, signed for 3 years and up to $48 million last offseason, is coming off a torn Achilles and a season where he appeared in only 8 games with a single sack. Grady Jarrett, his first season in Chicago, did not go as planned. A knee injury that cost him 3 games, 1.5 sacks, and a career worst run defense grade of 44.5, according to Pro Football Focus. One of the worst at his position in the entire league. Do you see the connection? Odeyingbo and Jarrett were 2 of the most expensive defensive signings POLES made over the last 2 years, and both ended up with significant injuries that wrecked the return on that investment in their very first year with the team. I'm not saying POLES was wrong to sign them. On paper, both signings made sense. I am saying there is a real tendency from this front office to invest heavily in players who arrive carrying medical risk, and that tendency is costing them twice over the guaranteed money and the production that money was supposed to buy. And now add Komet to that conversation. Even though his case is different, it is not an injury. It is simply that POLES decided to draft above him twice in a row. The common denominator across all three cases is the same. POLES makes resource allocation decisions that seem reasonable in the moment, but that a year or two later generate this uncomfortable cap-casualty conversation. If this happens a fourth time in 2027 with another new signing, then we need to start talking about a pattern that is no longer a coincidence. It is a risk evaluation problem inside the front office. Coming back specifically to Komet, my opinion is that they do not cut him in 2026. That much is close to certain. They need his blocking while Loveland is still learning to do it at an elite level. But if Roush shows in training camp that he can be a reliable TE2 option behind Loveland, the conversation about cutting him in 2027 stops being hypothetical and becomes practically inevitable. Because $10 million in savings on a roster trying to pay Caleb Williams an extension is not money POLES can afford to leave on the table. And this connects directly to what we just talked about with Sweat. Every dollar POLES manages to free up by cutting contracts that no longer produce is one more dollar available to buy the pass rush this team desperately needs. The roster gets built by selling what is surplus to buy what is missing. And right now, what is surplus is starting to pile up at tight end, and what is missing remains, without a doubt, the defensive edge. And to close things out, fam, the one that genuinely has me smiling, because after talking about trades that are not confirmed and a front office cutting people loose, I needed something to remind me why I love this sport. Kyle Monangai. Pick 233, 7th round of the 2025 draft out of Rutgers. Nobody expected anything from him. And what he did in his rookie year was, without exaggeration, one of the nicest surprises of the Bears season last year. He started with a small role, logical for a pick that late, but he kept earning more ground week by week until week 7, when he started truly splitting the workload with DeAndre Swift, the starter. And week 9 is when the whole country found out who he was. 176 rushing yards, a career high, filling in for an injured Swift in a wild 47-42 win over the Cincinnati Bengals. That week, Monangai did not just win over Bears fans, he won over the entire fantasy football community too. He put up another 100-yard game in week 13, and by the time the season wrapped up, he nearly broke 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 783 rushing plus receiving production, proving he is not just a between-the-tackles bruiser, he can contribute as a pass catcher too. Swift and Monangai turned into one of the best running back duos in the league, with Swift bringing the explosiveness and Monangai bringing the power. And looking ahead to 2026, there's no real reason to think they cannot recreate that success together. But here is the detail that changes the whole picture for 2027 and beyond. Swift is entering the final year of his contract. The Bears are going to have to start seriously thinking about the future of that position, and it is entirely possible Swift does not return, because Chicago might hesitate to hand another significant contract to a veteran when they already have a cheaper, proven alternative waiting on the bench. That means the starting job could be completely open next year. And if Monangai keeps ascending in 2026 at the pace he showed in his rookie season, he has a real shot at locking down the lead back role for 2027 and beyond. If that happens, POLES' decision on whether to re-sign Swift becomes a lot simpler. Letting him walk would save money that can be redirected toward other roster needs. And if you have been with me since the start of this video, you already know exactly where that needs to go, the defensive edge. Look, there is no world where Swift becomes irrelevant in this backfield overnight. He remains a quality player. But I would not rule out Monangai getting more work if he keeps playing the way he did in 2025, with the Bears actively evaluating him for the number 1 job heading into 2027, a 7th-round pick competing to be the lead back on a team that believes it is a Super Bowl contender. That, fam, is the kind of story that makes me love the draft. You never know where the next important player is going to show up. And there you have it, fam. 3 stories that, on the surface, seem to have nothing to do with each other, but underneath are the same story told 3 times. Ryan Poles deciding what to buy, what to sell, and what to bet on internally before the contention window with Caleb Williams at the helm closes. Josh Sweat is the purchase that would solve this roster's biggest structural problem, if Arizona actually lets him go, which is still not confirmed. Cole Komet is the latest example of a resource decision pattern we have already seen repeat itself in this front office, one Poles is eventually going to need to correct before it keeps costing him money in production. And Kyle Monangai is proof that sometimes the best investment is not the one you make in March with a big check. It is the one you already made a year ago with a 7th-round pick nobody was watching. Look, I could be wrong about the timing on all of this, but if there is one thing I have learned following this team, it is that a roster window like this one does not open twice. This year, you push, smart, and without fear. Bear down, always. If this analysis helped you out, hit the like, subscribe, and tell me down in the comments. If you had Ryan Poles' wallet right now, do you throw the third-round pick at Josh Sweat, or do you wait for the trade deadline? I want to read every single answer. See you in the next one.